Hi, everyone. For my extension project, I have decided to create a Prezi presentation. And to give you a little bit of a backstory on it, as I had mentioned in my previous project, one of my favorite topics is to look at narrative writing. Um, Typically when I start out narrative writing at the beginning of the year, my students tend to give me a probably two-page conversation. They're not able to develop any type of a plot. They don't really give much of a setting. It's just really the characters talking with each other. So one of the ideas that we had come up with was to create some form of a stop motion video, and that's what I had created in my last project. But this one I think might be a little bit more practical, at least for my classroom, especially with time, because where I do teach my kids how to make Google presentations, this is kind of very similar to that. So, um, what I'm going to do is just walk you through this particular presentation that I've created. I always lead my students in with a sentence or two just to kind of get the plot going, and kind of let them take it on from there. So at the beginning of the year, it's always, if I can remember correctly, not verbatim, that you have two characters. John and Katie are walking through the woods when John trips over a weird object sticking out of the ground. Now, what I try to get them to understand, and I also say there's a flickering light in the distance. So what I'm trying to get them to do is to be creative. What is that orb? Honestly, 50% of the time, what is that object? I created in mine an orb, which belongs to a pair of aliens. Now, kids at this age in the beginning typically say, oh, they tripped over a tree root. So we're trying to get them to think a little bit further outside the box, and to create some form of a story where, you create suspense, you create even some humor, but in this case, I've created a story around a pair of aliens that are looking to abduct humans to experiment on. So let's go through my presentation. So we're going to start with the setting of the story. Let me see here. There we go. So we have our protagonist, which starts off with John, who is our main character, and Katie plays his best friend. The antagonists in our story are these two aliens that abduct them, which we'll get to in just a second. So we have Gort and Crone. Now, the setting of the story begins in the forest. So they're walking through the forest. It's at nighttime. Can't really see much. So John trips over this weird orb, which is turns out to be owned by Gort and Crone. And when he picks that up, it attracts this flashing light, which turns out to be the space shuttle, or the spaceship, I should say. So you can see we've got our orb. Now they are abducted. And when John wakes up, he finds himself in a operating room or a surgical room all by himself. He's able to wiggle himself free. He is able to get himself upstairs and free Katie just in time before she is about to be dissected by these two aliens. And they're able to get to the escape hatch, which when they open it up, they realize they haven't really traveled very far, and they jump out and they notice, obviously, before they jump, that they're jumping into some water. So they end up jumping into a small lake that is off the forest that they were just in. And so the problem, obviously, being they are abducted and they need to break free. So they're able to get through in our solution here. And what I like to do, I always try to add a few twists and turns into my story. So the next morning, as the alarm goes off, John wakes up and realizes, man, This has been just one really, really bad dream. Until he kicks his feet over the side of the bed and looks down and notices that his wet clothes are sitting on the floor. And at this point, I just kind of leave to be continued. I figured this would be a great addition to my students' portfolio of technology. So I hope you enjoyed this and take care.